Every fraud in this video had auditors, regulators, boards full of famous names, journalists asking questions, and every single one of them kept growing anyway, for years. Tonight we count down the 6 biggest corporate frauds in history. Not the small-time scams. The empires. Companies worth billions that were, underneath the numbers, almost nothing at all. By the end, you'll notice they all share one pattern. And once you see it, you'll never look at a stock price the same way again. We go from 6 to 1. And number 1 is still hard to believe. Number 6. WorldCom was one of the largest telecom companies in America, and its CEO, Bernie Ebbers, was a Wall Street favorite, a former basketball coach who built a giant through more than 60 acquisitions. The problem came when the growth stopped. Instead of reporting it, WorldCom simply moved everyday costs into a different column of the books, and expenses became investments. With that one trick, the company invented $11 billion in profits that never existed. The fraud wasn't discovered by regulators, or by the auditors who signed off year after year. It was found by the company's own internal auditor, Cynthia Cooper, who got suspicious and dug through the accounting system at night, in secret, against direct instructions to drop it. What she found triggered the largest bankruptcy in American history at the time. Ebbers claimed at trial that he didn't understand the accounting. The jury didn't believe him. He was sentenced to 25 years. Simple tricks, giant numbers, and auditors looking the other way. Keep that combination in mind, because the next company on the list was even more respected, and its cash simply did not exist. Number 5. Wirecard was the pride of German tech, a payments company so successful it entered the DAX, the index of Germany's most important corporations, and at its peak was worth more than Deutsche Bank. There was just one issue. A big part of the business was fiction, and the money that proved it, 1.9 billion euros, supposedly sitting in 2 banks in the Philippines, was never there. Journalists at the Financial Times spent 5 years documenting the fraud. Germany's response was remarkable. Instead of investigating the company, the regulator went after the journalists. Then, in June 2020, the auditors finally refused to sign the accounts and asked the Philippine banks directly. The accounts were empty. Wirecard collapsed in days. CEO Marcus Braun was arrested. And Chief Operating Officer Jan Marsalek boarded a plane, disappeared, and is still a fugitive today, one of the most wanted men in Europe. A DAX company, a 1.9 billion euro hole, and the press treated as the enemy for telling the truth. But at least Wirecard had a real product. The next company raised $9 billion on a machine that never worked. Number 4. Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford at 19 with an idea the world wanted to believe, hundreds of medical tests from a single drop of blood. She wore a black turtleneck, spoke in a deep voice, and filled her board with legends, secretaries of state, generals, senators. By 2014, Theranos was worth $9 billion and she was on magazine covers as the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. Behind the curtain, the technology didn't work. The famous machines produced unreliable results, so Theranos quietly ran many of its tests on ordinary commercial analyzers, while real patients received results they should never have trusted. This wasn't just investors losing money. These were blood tests. In 2015, a Wall Street Journal reporter started pulling the thread, and the $9 billion story fell apart. Holmes was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 11 years in prison. Here's the uncomfortable question. Nobody on that famous board ever demanded to see the technology validated. The story was too good to check. And if you think that only happens in medicine, wait until you see what the smartest investors in the world missed at number 3. Number 3. Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to be the responsible face of crypto. Messy hair, shorts, video games during meetings, and behind him, FTX, an exchange worth $32 billion at its peak. Celebrities did his commercials. An NBA arena carried his logo. Politicians took his donations. Sophisticated venture funds wired him fortunes, some without ever seeing audited accounts. What almost nobody knew was that FTX had a back door. Customer deposits, money that was supposed to just sit there, had been quietly funneled to his own trading firm and gambled on markets, spent on real estate, and handed out as loans. The whole reached $8 billion. In November 2022, a single news article questioned the books. Customers rushed to withdraw. It took about 8 days for the entire empire to go from genius story to bankruptcy. Bankman-Fried was convicted on 7 counts and sentenced to 25 years. The oldest scam in the world had simply put on a hoodie. And still, none of this compares to the 2 names at the top, starting with the company that wrote the modern playbook for corporate lying. Number 2. Enron. Fortune magazine named it America's most innovative company 6 years in a row. Business schools taught it. Employees were told to put their retirement savings in company stock. And the innovation, it turned out, was in the accounting. Enron booked tomorrow's hypothetical profits as if they were today's real ones, and buried its debts inside a maze of shell companies, entities that existed mostly so the balance sheet wouldn't have to tell the truth. When an executive finally warned, in writing, that Enron could implode in a wave of accounting scandals, the stock was already sliding. It went from $90 to under $1 in about a year. In December 2001, Enron filed the largest bankruptcy America had ever seen. More than 20,000 employees lost their jobs, and many lost their pensions with them. Its auditor, Arthur Andersen, one of the 5 biggest accounting firms on the planet, was caught shredding Enron documents and was destroyed by the scandal. CEO Jeffrey Skilling was sentenced to 24 years. Enron became the reason corporate accounting laws changed forever. And yet, the man at number 1 ran his lie for even longer, right under the regulator's nose. Number 1. Bernie Madoff wasn't an outsider. He was Wall Street royalty, a former chairman of the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, a man whose fund was so exclusive that investors begged to be let in. For decades, he delivered returns that were never spectacular, just impossibly steady. Markets crashed, Madoff didn't. And the reason was simple. There were no investments. Almost no trades at all. Just one giant account where new money paid the old, while statements were invented to show $65 billion that existed only on paper. A private analyst, Harry Markopolos, worked out mathematically that the returns were impossible, and warned the regulator again and again, for years. Nothing happened. It took the 2008 financial crisis to do what the watchdogs wouldn't. When too many investors asked for their money back at once, the pyramid ran dry. Madoff confessed to his own sons, who turned him in the next day. He was sentenced to 150 years and died in prison. Charities were wiped out. Families lost everything. The largest Ponzi scheme in history didn't hide in the shadows. It sat at the very center of Wall Street, wearing a Nasdaq title. 6 frauds. 1 pattern. In every single case, the numbers were too good, too smooth, too perfect, and the people paid to be skeptical chose not to be. Auditors signed. Regulators filed warnings away. Boards admired the story instead of checking it. Because when everyone is making money, the most dangerous thing you can do is ask a simple question out loud. That's the real lesson of this list. The biggest frauds in history didn't survive because they were brilliant. They survived because nobody wanted the music to stop. Which of these 6 shocked you the most? And do you think it could happen again today, or is it already happening right now? Tell us in the comments. New files are opening soon, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is Mega Frauds of History.